Hello everybody and welcome to the other side of the room for a very special top 5 board gaming video that is all about Cosmic Encounter. So recently I did a video celebrating getting 5,000 subscribers, and as part of it I revealed this case that I have assembled and eventually filled with all of the major editions of Cosmic Encounter. So what I wanted to do is kind of go through all of the 5 major releases of them and kind of rank them in my personal preference order. Now obviously it's a very specific game, but of course as always I'm curious what you have to say. If you've played this game before, what is your personal favorite and why? Let me know anything and everything in the comments below as always. But that said, we are going to go right on ahead and get started with my number 5. At number 5, I have the West End Games version of Cosmic Encounter. This is an unfortunate one in that it's effectively a copy-paste of the original Eon edition that just changed the tokens to plastic instead of cardboard, required you to have an opaque cup to figure out who you were going to attack, and change the card backs, and really nothing else whatsoever. So simply for lack of creativity, West End Games is at the bottom of the list for me. At number 4, I have the Avalon Hill version. So Avalon Hill did some great things for Cosmic Encounter. They had much bigger board areas with a lot more color. They have plastic pieces that you're able to stack up and put on the little ships and all that kind of stuff, but they did everything else wrong. They took out a lot of the really fun aspects of Cosmic Encounter. They made some of the cards virtually impossible to read because of the contrast that they've got, and it was just a brutal thing. That said, it's still in my collection because it is still one of the releases of the game. I'm just not a huge fan of how it plays out because they essentially gutted the entire thing. The Avalon Hill version, my number 4. At number 3, I've got Eon, that is to say the original version of the game. Now of course the Eon version had a lot of expansions that added a ton of different things that we saw in later editions of the game, but for the original version, the first release with nothing else going behind it, it's still a solid game. You had a decent number of alien powers, you had some very interesting cosmic edicts as they're called, of various things that happen to different people at different times. You do have 3 different versions of the Eon one with 3 different boxes that were released in different years, and overall it was a good game, and it still is a good game, and it's how I recognize a lot of Cosmic Encounter stuff to this day because it's one of the ones that I first started playing. But that said, there are other ones that do it a little bit better. So the Eon edition is my number 3. At number 2, I've got the Fantasy Flight Edition. Now, to be fair, this does have 2 releases, the most recent one being this one, which is the 42nd, I believe, anniversary edition of Cosmic Encounter, and the original one was in 2008, I believe, which has had 5 expansions up until this point. So Fantasy Flight, I think, did a good job of balancing having the playability of plastic pieces and that sort of thing with the quality components and cards and readability and powers that Eon and West End had, essentially. So it was a good mix between the two of them. But the problem was that it still left out a lot of stuff that we didn't see elsewhere. And that was kind of frustrating. Some of it came back during the expansions, which was great, but in my personal opinion, not enough of it came back. Or at least it was too expensive to get everything back because you had to buy so many expansions. It's still a great game and a wonderful introduction, not to mention it's going to be the easiest one for you to find, so the Fantasy Flight Edition is my number 2. At number 1, I have the Mayfair Cosmic Encounter Edition, and I love this game so much that I bought it twice. Once to display, new and shrink, and once to have so that I can actually play it. I find that this particular game, both the original Cosmic Encounter as well as More Cosmic, strikes the perfect balance of having interesting mechanics, fascinating aliens, good components, and overall just being a straight up enjoyable game in a single package. And honestly, that's what it was designed for. It was released in the early 90s after a decent amount of talking and discussion after the West End games one, where they were essentially like, we need to kind of reboot this thing and make it better for the more modern era. So we saw things like kicker cards, flare cards, the negative number cards, all sorts of different stuff like that included in the base box. The expansion added stuff like moons, additional alien powers that we had seen in the original Eon edition, as well as new cards, new flares, and all of that kind of stuff to go along with it. And so it's just that right balance. Oh, not to mention lucre, an actual currency within the game, was added in the expansion as well. It is still my favorite game to play. It is still my favorite edition of Cosmic Encounter to play. I absolutely love it, and honestly, a lot of the components still work together. Not to mention the fact that Mayfair also released another edition called Simply Cosmic. Simply Cosmic is exactly that. It's a very simplified version of Cosmic Encounter that only has a small handful of aliens with relatively simple mechanics that are graded very similarly to how Fantasy Flight ended up doing it, to where you have easy, medium, and difficult. And the idea was that you don't want to get this big giant box of this kind of scary game, so instead you get this smaller version that plays fewer players and has some different stuff going on with it. One of the really cool things about the Simply Cosmic edition is that it was actually colorblind friendly, which is not something you really see anywhere else, because in Simply Cosmic all of the individual colors had particular shapes on them, and that was included in the Destiny deck as well. So you could tell exactly who you had to attack, because even if you're colorblind, you know that pink is star. And so if you can't see it as pink, you see it as star. It also says the word pink on it, but that doesn't really help you if you don't know what pink is. But that said, with all of that, Mayfair, the edition, by far is my favorite Cosmic Encounter. Well, everybody, that's going to be it for me. Obviously, this is a little bit of a vanity project overall, because I'm super excited to have this display finished and have everything on display so that people can see my passion for this particular game. But of course, I do want to hear from you guys as well. I know that many of you are probably not fans of this game. Not everybody can be. So let me know what your grievances are. Let me know what your loves are about it. I would love to discuss it more and more. That said, I highly doubt you'll be able to ever change my mind about how much I personally love it. But regardless, I love to hear from you all. Thank you so very much for watching the video. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.